Oh, no.
What a sausage. Sorry, guys. Classic Martin there. John Finnegan says it well there. Someone give him Condon a kick in the arse and wake him up. What an absolute stingbad I was. And oh, Wally. Sorry, guys. My apologies. So we'll start that again, shall we? Johnny Keenan, welcome to the Martin's World podcast, episode 45. It's a pleasure to have you here, pal. And my apologies for an absolute Wally of a start. I'm rusty, what can I say?
You only go from here, man. Now you're heard.
I'm glad everybody out there is enjoying that. There's a couple of people laughing away there in the hot box at the moment. And I don't blame them either. Like, classic. Like, I've constantly done it. Do you know the mistake I made? I muted our mics before because we were chatting there while there was a holding screen, and I muted it, and then when I transitioned over, amateurish.
No problem.
Yeah.
Don't look behind you. The whole of Cork City is looking in.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well,
fantastic image.
What we were saying while we were muted is I was just letting people know that Johnny Keenan was an inspiration to myself on a recent blog post I was going to write. And the quote that I was taking from Johnny Keenan was from a recent conference above in Dublin in the Sugar Club with the Patients for Safe Access. And from the audience, Johnny was triggered to shout out, "Stoners are people too." But that was going to be the topic of the blog. And I said, you know what? Instead of writing that, I get Johnny on instead. And here you are, Johnny. So, Johnny, nice one. And again, sorry, that was an awful back up. But come here, the stoners are people too. You know, you were triggered to shout that out, and I would agree with you because I was sitting on stage when you actually shouted it out. I can remember it quite well. But for you, you know, just elaborate a little bit on it if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, well, first of all, I suppose the conference was fantastic in the Sugar Club last May, and I was really happy to go there and lend my support and learn from these conferences, and it was very well run. And I know most of you on the committee, like, you know, in relation to your relentless work. And I love the way it was, like, you know, patient-led. And I see it's going from strength to strength now. I'm looking at Amy in the last week, you know, to get her license. I think, you know, it was a great meeting of minds, and also from people that could come in off the street, like, you know, and just learn more about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I you know, as an unashamable stoner myself, I kind of, like, you know, there is a stigma, and you know, you understand, you know, when there's terms kind of being batted around, you know, people use it, you know, more against you than with you. But if you look at the originality of stoner, like, you know, and it goes back to your buddy, Mr. Tommy Chong, you know, Cheech and Chong, you know, we all go back to when we started smoking cannabis first. I was kind of a latecomer. I was about 19 or 20. I was in college in Dublin. I'm originally from Offaly, so you wouldn't be getting anything like that down there in the mid-90s, you know. And so when I went up to Dublin and was introduced to soap bar, hash, ish, there was a buzz about it, you know. And you had the giggles, and then you had, you know, meeting of minds and skinning up, and the obligatory passing the Dutchies to the left-hand side. You know, we're all kind of new to it. We're students there, and we're studying music management and media studies, and very much involved in the whole art. And, you know, cannabis was always hand in hand with creative thinking. So when you have a bunch of stoner students, if you like, sitting around listening to Bob Marley or listening to Floyd, listening to Beatles, listening to anything, you know, and engaging, you know, it's kind of like, that was my introduction to cannabis in the mid-90s. And stoner was like, you know, it wasn't a badge of honor, but, like, you know, it wasn't, or a term of endearment. It was just, you know, what you were. And I suppose it kind of came from that kind of, you know, American culture, you know, dude, stoner, and, you know, the Cheech and Chong films were epic, obviously, classics, and, you know, very much associated with, and it was just a term, but it wasn't something that you would, like, be ashamed of. Certainly not. You know, if someone was a stoner, they were sound. You know, that was, it was.
I think that's how we see it now. But I suppose I was, in writing the article, I was doing a little bit of research into the etymology of the actual word stoner, And it actually seems like it's derived from biblical times when people were actually getting stoned to death.
Yeah. Well,
and they would use that to describe people back then, that person is stoned looking, and it wasn't even in reference to their intoxication, but it was a downbeatenness, ruggedness, that the person is downtrodden, the person is, I don't know, I would just say, like, it's just not doing well in life. They're stoned, they look like a person who's after getting pelted by stones. And that's kind of originally where the term would have been used back then. And then later on would have been a term associated with alcohol use, is kind of what I found in researching it, that a person is stone drunk. And then it wasn't until, again, as you said, around that 60s, 70s, that the term started finding its way in through jazz references. And it wasn't a derogatory term at the time. It was just something, it was just kind of what you felt when you consumed cannabis. You just felt a little bit stoned. It seems like an apt way of describing it at times, not all the time, because there's other times some is very uplifting and you don't feel stoned. But for definitely when you come to the soap bar, I think there was no uplifting in the soap bar. I think there was just always a stoned. It wasn't until the weed came along, the proper cannabis came, and I think then you seen the different effects of it there. But when you were consuming soap bar, as you were back in those days, you were definitely just stoned, couch locked.
Yeah, well, you do well with what you have. And that was the only kind of smoke that was around back then. It was definitely within the circles that I was in, weren't that well in the know. But it's interesting that you actually, where the term derives from. And it's interesting that the biblical context, because that I was tour manager with Howard Marks for 7 years. We went to Highways and the Highways of Ireland, but he had a passage in his spoken word show in relation to cannabis and the biblical context. And he has a phrase. I think it's Matthew. Sorry, no, I'm not too au fait with the Bible. But he was able to kind of pinpoint where God said someone smokes, and and if you read the the Bible is probably one of the most.
It's open to interpretation,
interpretive books you can possibly imagine, and they use it for whatever gain they have. But it was a few jokes. When it was the first time drugs were mentioned in the Bible, when Mary Magdalene got stoned, and there's other ones there I can't think off the top of my head. Sorry. And I have to say, hands up, I'm not stoned at the moment. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There's a bit of a drought around where I am. And it's hard to get something that's reasonable. And so therefore I go without at the moment, because where you were with some hashish, and there's some grass out there that's fairly gives you more than a stone feeling. And I'm kind of in between getting my strain right again. Because it's very important, as you talk about a lot on your show. And congratulations, by the way, great to see you back, because it definitely it keeps people connected in relation to just talking about serious stuff, and in relation to the terminology which we're kind of talking about today. But to bring it up to the conference in last May, the way it was kind of said, and I think it's amazing that the medical cannabis is being led by patients.
Yeah.
And, I think most of the people that I know that are medical cannabis patients are also midnight tokers as well. So it kind of works well for what the people need out of it. They're not coming new to it. Like, when you look at Vera now and Eva, and great to hear that they're getting on well. She was kind of coming from outside of it completely, and that kind of blew it all open, and that kind of made people think like, okay, I don't smoke cannabis, I'm not a stoner. And I know from talking to Vera, she never would have thought like that. She never would have talked like that. She was just wanted to get the medicine for her daughter, and it happened to be cannabis. And she never judged anyone. But I did see a niggling thing, not at the conference, but in relation to where people assessing their own personal medicational needs, that they kind of had a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Some people I would have talked to, I kind of, I wouldn't say educate them, but just say, listen, hold on a second. And it comes really from I was on tour with Howard Marks, but I was also on tour with the great John Sinclair.
Yeah.
Howard unfortunately passed on in 2016, and John Sinclair is mad alive, and I think he says it better. If people that your listeners or your viewers who don't know John Sinclair, he's one of the radical heads of the 60s. John Lennon wrote a song about him. He was in jail for giving an undercover cop 2 spliffs, and I says, John, why did you give an undercover cop 2 spliffs? He says, because she was cute. So I go, okay, fair enough. So subsequently, he ended up being in jail in Michigan and Detroit, and he was there for 2 joints. He was given, was it 10 years? I think, 10 for 2. 10 years he was given for 2 joints.
Jeez, man.
And word got out. We're talking about 60s radical America. The counterculture. And which he was a big thorn in the American administration, and he had three things that he was standing up for, himself and his cohorts: the anti-Vietnam War, legalization of cannabis, and solidarity with the Black Panthers. So the 3 of them kind of did kind of cross in relation to rallies and such, because everyone that was into changing the world were into those 3 things, like. Particularly the human rights aspect, the civil rights with solidarity with the Black people, the Black folk in America at that time. But when John Lennon found out about his plight, then he decided that he would add his name to a rally that took place in Michigan. I think it was around this time, actually. I think it was the 10th of December. It was in 1971. John Lennon wrote a song. Himself and Yoko turned up. There was Stevie Wonder was there, Bobby Seale from the Black Panthers, and loads of other heads.
Some big names.
Absolutely. But the thing about it, which gives us all encouragement, is that after the rally, Sinclair was freed after 3.5 years of a 10-year sentence because of the power of the people, and there's a lot to be said for solidarity. And, and that would have been all driven by stoners.
Mm-hmm.
But in relation to just understanding and going back to the term, the word of what it was then, it was like solidarity. The stoners of the world unite kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in that, in the meantime, it's kind of like it's a negative term. It's kind of like lazy, do nothing. Yeah. But I as I say, unashamedly, I would see myself as a stoner in the context of being around sound people in relation to cannabis. And as you said, the word itself can be used to get drunk. Brilliant song there, Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Cash covered it, but it was what's his name? I think it was Chris Christopherson that wrote it. But there's a fantastic line in it. Sunday morning, wishing Lord that I was stoned.
Yeah.
There's something in a Sunday that makes a body feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so you're thinking, like, is he drunk? Is he? And then other people said to me, "Oh, I was stoned last night." I was like, you don't smoke. No, I was drunk, like, So the word thing is, where it works its way around,
Yeah.
But when people are saying it in relation to the cannabis movement now in Ireland, that's where we are, and that's what I know. It is a negative term, and I'm grateful. With your help, we're just going to reclaim it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I definitely don't see myself as being lazy. I see myself as awake, not woke, but awake in relation to the possibilities. And this is the main thing about cannabis, that people that don't smoke kind of, whether they want to understand it, and I don't mean everyone, I'm not tarring everyone with this, but I'm just in general, with a conversation that I have, especially with the media, the mainstream media, essentially News Talk and RT, whenever we're talking about Gino's bill, maybe later on, they always have someone on to give a negative aspect to that, and they're given free rein by the likes of Pat Kenny or Claire Byrne or whoever. Like, they don't pick them up on an argument was had like years ago. So the whole aspect of that word is kind of like, it's a stereotype in, that stoners are, we are real people. But to think like, oh, he's a stoner, he doesn't have anything to say. She doesn't have anything to say. They just kind of smoke dope
They
all
use
day
it
and
as a
they don't
dismissive
work.
term. Yeah.
It is. It's a terrible term. But if you within the context, I suppose if we look at talking about Sinclair and the counterculture of America in the 60s, it was radical. And it really kind of, has planted the seeds, pun intended, for where we are today in the conversation. Look at 420, for example.
Yeah.
What I would say, Martin, is that stoners kind of are smokers, obviously, but that means that when they inhale and they let the
magic happen.
The magic happen. Yeah. And it relieves stress, and it also kind of slows down the thinking in relation to now you're at your own pace. And so you can summons all the cares away, and think of things that are important in a calmer, kind of cooler, collective kind of frame of mind, if you know what I mean. When your brain isn't rushing. Now, people who smoke understand what I'm saying, but I'm trying to make the point to people who don't, that we think differently. And it's no coincidence, as Bill Hicks says, if you don't like drugs, but principally cannabis, throw away all your CDs and all your books, because the people who wrote them and played on all those music, you talk about the jazz cigarettes and all that, and the stigma associated with jazz musicians who were predominantly black.
Yeah.
And reefer madness. So it's more throwing everything in to make these people seem less human, subhuman, in fact, in an awful lot of cases.
Yeah.
And that story or that narrative, it's old hat. We need to move on.
But that's how
the
fight
we move on
was.
is just educate people who don't smoke that people think differently. And here's the fact of the matter is, most artistic people that are really into their art, they do smoke.
Yeah.
I mightn't smoke a hell of an amount, but they definitely have what's the term? Just dabbled, I suppose, and most of them see it as a stimulant. Same way as we're a notorious nation for fantastic writers, and their stimulant was Guinness and whiskey, and there was no problem singing their praises and advertising their art on the back of Arthur Guinness and Mr. Jameson, So the rest of the world is caught up in relation to where cannabis is, and Ireland is just we're getting there. Poke, as they say in Spain, but still we don't have any. What they have in Barcelona, for example. The
social clubs.
Social clubs. Sorry, excuse me. That's just a breath of fresh air, and if the quicker we catch up to where the rest of the world is at, we just have to kind of meet every argument head on in relation to stoner. It's funny, it's a catchphrase, it's this and it's that amongst the community of cannabis users.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when someone that isn't familiar with cannabis and uses that term, it's kind of loaded.
Yeah,
I find.
Yeah, it definitely is. But anytime I suppose I've heard it used, it's been used in a derogatory way. I haven't heard people use it in a proud way that I'm a stoner. I'm proud. There is one person. There's a journalist. Geez, her name is eluding me now. Tracy. Or is it Tara? Jeez, her name's eluding me now. It's that. Jesus, she's going to kill me for forgetting her name. But she messaged me and she was actually saying, she was using the hashtag Proud Stoner, I believe was the hashtag she was using. But I couldn't have agreed with her more. And I suppose it was back then. But when was that? That was during the lockdown, June during the lockdown. And I very much agreed with her. I was like, yeah, that is something that needs to be done. And it was something I seen very prevalent within our own community here is how stigmatizing we were to each other. That when I was organising, say, protests, and say if I was to throw like a Rastafarian colour team type thing in there, or maybe a cannabis leaf or two or something along those lines, that, oh geez, everybody's going to think it's a bunch of stoners. And and there was references there to, say, clothes that I was wearing. You need to throw on a suit, you need to look professional. And I don't disagree with all of that, but at the same time, I don't agree with telling a person they need to change their look in order to get people to listen to them. It's like how I dress shouldn't change the quality of what it is that I'm saying, because I'm saying the very same crap, whether I'm wearing clothes, wearing no clothes, or wearing the finest fucking Armani suit or whatever high-end suit you want to slap on a person. Like, but it doesn't change what I'm saying. Is that I consume cannabis. I enjoy cannabis culture. I love Cheech and Chong. I love reggae music. You know, I love all of that kind of stuff that you would almost associate with cannabis culture. I love art. I love like in music and all of that kind of stuff. You know, I'm a very creative kind of person. I'm not very fixed either, very free flowing. But that's cannabis, and I don't know. That's how I would see being a stoner, is enjoying all of that. I think there's people out there that can consume cannabis, and they probably don't like cannabis culture. And to be very honest, I don't know. Do I see those people as stoners? And there's people who consume cannabis and they almost want to deny the freeing qualities of it. That, you know, that it doesn't make things better. Oh yeah, no, I'm just going to consume my cannabis and I'm going to act all uptight or something. You know, it's like, no, go on, you gotta let your hair down and enjoy life.
Absolutely, man. You know, that's why we do it initially. Like, you know, I remember the first spliff I had, it was 19. Well, I actually had one before that. It was in Tullamore. And it was, I don't know what it was, but it just didn't give me any kind of natural high. But when I did get it, I got it, you know. And with that, then, you know, a whole, you know, high times was something when I was in Australia. You know, I used to get that regularly because it was there. It was, you could buy it easy. It was at the corner shop. I don't think it was on sale in Ireland. Well, maybe it was.
No, I didn't see it in Ireland. But it wasn't.
No, but you know, that opened up a whole new culture to. But as I say, the stigma is very, and it's all media driven, you know, and it's just continuation of reefer madness and to stigmatize people, and that's what they did. To stigmatize the black community, particularly the jazz musicians, you know, and jazz cigarettes and such. Even though that wasn't probably a bad term, but it was just kind of, you know, identifying them as different.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, I would know, being from Offaly, I'd be used to stigma. Like, you know, there was a term, and I think it came from Montrose RT in relation to Biffo. You know, that was a very derogatory term. You know, it means, well, the way they want it to mean is like, you know, you're from the bog, you know, big ignorant fucker from Offaly. You know?
Yeah.
And then, like, the only way to do that is to kind of, you know, it's an acronym, so you just change it around, and it's beautiful and intelligent folk from Offaly, you know. And then, you know, it's, you can never say it's a racist term in Ireland because it's not, doesn't have all those connotations that the N-word would have. So, you know, you just take it, but the way people would use it, you know, would be kind of loaded as well. It's not a term of endearment.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all in the word, and it's all how it's said, and it's all in how you embrace that term. So obviously we're going through a kind of a rough period of name calling and names meaning different things. It's amazing, like, you know, the power of words and how they're used in everything that's going on at the moment in the world. And like you said, they're in relation to the culture and the art of the herb. Like Bob Marley just kind of really embraced the plant, and he called it the herb, and he made it sound like, you know, this was a natural thing. And a very religious guy, you know. I wouldn't be Rastafarian myself, but I respect their culture to the degree where they understand, like, you know, the food that's associated, the music, and it's all coming from the bottom of your feet up to your soul, and cannabis is the fuel. But then when you look at Bob Marley paraphernalia, he's the stoner. People rarely like look at Natural Mystic, for example, you know, Kaya, you know, these that are specifically songs that he wrote about the plant and glorifying.
Yeah.
In a really good way, you know, this is something that's natural, and this is something that came from God and grows all around us. So how can anyone think that they can patent this and tell me that I can't do something that's natural to me? And he lived his life by that. Yeah. Smoked a pound a week. Right? and you know, talk about stoners being like, you know, lazy.
Yeah.
Like that man, like, he came from abject poverty.
Yeah.
Easily the most influential artist ever. And he died when he was 36. Unfortunately, from glaucoma, which was essentially cancer that's given that white people essentially get.
Yeah,
and he was of mixed race, so that was, the irony was terrible. But I've massive respect for Bob Marley and his message, because it's still today, like, when we look at the World Cup and the one love
Yeah.
concept, and it's great that the LGBT can embrace that as well. And I understand that Rastafarianism and other religions probably don't are slow to other religions. So I'm not going to make any excuses for what religions are, because I just think, the one love concept that Marley embraced says it all, really, in relation to how we can come together. And he was a massive footballer as well. They say that if he wasn't a rock star or a reggae rock star, he could have played
on
for
the
Jamaica,
national team.
Yeah, well, yeah. That was his love outside of the music. So, but I really feel that his legacy has also been diluted in relation to what he stood for, and he just like not Joyce as such, but let's say Flann O'Brien and Brendan Behan, like, were serious drinkers, and Shane McGowan, hopefully he's doing well.
Yeah,
I know he's poorly at the moment, so sending positive vibes to his way. These guys were serious drinkers, were and are serious drinkers, and they make no allowances for it, and it's completely socially acceptable. So, in relation to when we actually get our heads out our asses in this country, stoner is a term of endearment. So we just need to, as I say, use this magic hour, Martin, to reclaim the word and say, listen, there's nothing wrong with it. That's great.
No, that's what I'm saying as well. I'm a stoner and proud. Well, I started off my cannabis use as a recreational user, call it that. I was peer pressured into it by friends at the age of friends, cousins, also friends, at the age of 15, and I definitely came back to it because of its therapeutic properties. But I didn't realize that until many years later. The grounding properties of it, this being stoned, like, the effects of it. It allowed me to engage my mind in a way in which I hadn't been doing before. And I suppose before that, I would have been acting rather recklessly. And after engaging with my mind a bit more and thinking things a bit better, I made better decisions. And I thought that's what I rather liked about it. And I kept coming back for that grounding aspect of it. It's true. It's like, it's grounds you in the present moment, but it allows you to actually engage your mind. Whereas before, I definitely wasn't there. But I love the culture that came with it. The chilling out, watching movies with the lads, getting the munchies. They're getting they get giddy bangs, uncontrollable laughter, like, to the point where you're literally in pain from laughing so much, and you don't even know what you're laughing at. We've had some good times, all right. But it's definitely something that we need to be wearing with pride. I think I'm going to put a T-shirt actually up on the website, Proud Stoner, something along those lines. I don't know, is there any creative people out there got some good ideas? Fire them my way.
Yeah. But, like, because you kind of jump around in relation to what subject matter you talk about, it's fairly serious, quite a bit. But there's an element that you're able to bring in. The texts are quite funny too, in relation to why people essentially just want to chill out, and have a laugh and not take life too seriously, because life at the moment is really serious, in an awful lot of ways. We're only out of lockdown, and there's still, we haven't figured out the repercussions of that, and people are very stressed out. And the last thing, I kind of have a thing, one man's pint's another woman's joint.
Yeah.
And then I did think seriously about the whole stoner stigma as well. And then, there's a great phrase, no stone left unturned. Being creative, messing around, just put an R on that, no stoner left unturned, because we're all in it together, like, essentially, that no one should be stigmatized for taking something that's natural. Now it's illegal, so we know why it's illegal. Well, my tuppence word on that is, like, it's because the pharmaceutical companies can't patent it. That seems to, after thinking long and hard in relation to, and how, like, my body, my choice was a thing. And I was very much supportive of the gay community in relation to equality marriage. And I was very much supportive of women's autonomy in relation to the referendum recently. But from campaigning in and around those two, not in a major way, but just being supportive and going and learning, because you learn a lot by going to break bread with people.
Yeah.
And when you have a serious mistrust for the media. Now I know the media were some of them were, but I found that if you want something to happen, you go to a protest because you're actually making an active step in that, rather than sitting at home being a keyboard warrior, which an awful lot of people seem to be. But it was like, I found with those two campaigns, and they were referendum issues, that we all agreed unanimously, anyone I was talking to. The third one is legalization of cannabis.
Yeah.
Now, I can't understand that after getting the other two over the fence, these people don't seem to be
as the same mindset.
Anywhere. Yeah, it still seems to be the core people.
Yeah.
And since I've been involved in the cannabis movement, I suppose it started since 1997 when Ming was in. I was in Ballyfermot doing music management media studies, and Ming was studying journalism back then. And I think he ran. It could have been in Galway or it might have been in Dublin. I don't know. I can't remember that at that time. But it was a real issue, and that was the time he sent a spliff to all the TDs.
Yeah.
So, man, did you have a spliff there, Megan? He goes, no, don't. You got a spliff for every TD. You don't have a spliff for a poor student stoner, man. And so I remember having a laugh with him about that, and looking at where it is now, and how he had to kind of give up his part-time habit.
Yeah. That really broke a lot of people when
it did, man. And I wouldn't say there's any coming back, but it kind of, that's what I mean. Like, it's unfortunate that community is too transient. When people are using it as a platform and then don't stand by it, and I just feel disappointed with Ming. That he isn't in such a great position over in Europe. And that's where we really need the flag to be flown, like, because I can't understand, Martin, and I did tell you that I might go off on a tangent, so bring me back. Like, there's a stoner's code, it's an unwritten rule, that you'll get looked after. He's grand, and I found this when I was going around with Howard Marks. There was lads really, fair play to them, home growers and all that. They were mad to get Howard to sample their produce, Yeah. And I thought, this is brilliant, I'm never going to be without a split again. And but they're fly-by-nighters, like, in an awful lot of cases. And I understand that they have to be because it's illegal, so they can't be putting their stall out in public view, which is kind of frustrating, because I found that and Howard would say himself, this is an unbelievable country for green.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not like Tom Jones, Wales, the green grass home, he says it's greener. And because whatever way we were able to grow, we're an agricultural country, and once again, Irish people, as you know yourself, probably more than me through the show, very timid. And when it comes to, like, you don't, and everyone smokes in this. Everyone smokes. So I found out that if you're working within the public sector, you definitely can't have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
If you have a family, I can't be,
Yeah.
But fortunately or unfortunately, I don't work in the public sector, and I don't have a young family. But it's kind of, but it's a weight on people, because, and I know from being with Howard, going around the country, two guys went to see him in Dublin, and I said, he's playing in Mayo, man, next fortnight. I said, why didn't you see him? No, he couldn't be seen down there, because of, you can't go to a show, and they were right, because there was DS in the audience, like, at a few gigs. So it's all well and good to kind of stand up and be counted, but there is repercussions, and no doubt that this is being monitored, but at the same time, it's going to come to a stage, Martin, where this is going to be all passe. It's going to be legal. Everything is going to be grand. The economy is going to rise up, and the crime is going to go down. And it's just a matter of time before all that becomes apparently clear. I don't know how much we have to lose as an economy in order to realize what kind of a cash cow that cannabis actually is. And people are obsessed now with the green wave, in relation to climate change and global warming. I'll take every opinion on board, and I'll bisect it, and I'm not a denier, but there is something awry in relation to how, if we're going to think green, and that hemp is a byproduct of cannabis is a byproduct of hemp. There's 250 byproducts of the one plant, and when you have students already making proposals about the quality of hemp. We're talking about hemp breeze and all that. It's all part of the one plant, and it's sustainability.
You're talking about secondary school students there as well.
Absolutely.
That was the one that they made above in the young government when they were playing the government for the day. That was a recommendation they made, that we needed to put in place an infrastructure for processing hemp to save the fucking future, save the world.
Yeah. And with that, then I suppose it is the media have a key role in this. The media are, I didn't actually think that the media were so manipulative. That's the word. It's like Jim Morrison, an unashamable stoner as well. I don't know if he was that much into his cannabis, but he was into his psychedelics and stuff.
Yeah.
And his alcohol. That would be the Irish, I suppose, he'd say himself. But he kind of phrased, and I think he actually said it. Whoever controls the media controls the mind.
Yeah.
And that really is it. Because what you're doing off your bat is essential media, and long may it last. But to see that there's nothing in and around it, to have a bigger conversation for the people who don't smoke, for example, who don't partake.
Yeah.
And I know the whole thing is revolutionized now again with the edibles and stuff. I'm old school, man. I just prefer the obligatory joint, and I don't smoke tobacco, but I just find that balance suits me.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it's kind of gone now, we're talking about cannabis, THC and CBD. What's the difference? Well, the difference is very clear. If you bother to inform yourself, CBD is a physical high, THC is a natural or a mind high, if you like. And people just don't know this, and I'm talking about in the mainstream. So to have a conversation, you need to kind of, we're not taking heroin. It's not cocaine. It's cannabis. It's no one's ever died of cannabis. Then someone reminded me, or not reminded me, but told me jokingly, "Oh no, some lad in Leitrim died there." What? He says, a bale of cannabis fell in his head. And, so that's probably the only way that could possibly happen, because it just doesn't. The worst thing you'll do is pull a whitey and you'll wake up, what was all that about? And this is when people, everyone goes off on their stags and hens or whatever weekends away to Amsterdam, and it's an obligatory part of the trip that you get high. And then you realize, well, it's not that big of a deal. But it's not that big of a deal. But it's a big deal when you take someone right, and especially and I'm very inspired this week as well by Amy Brown, because she's so articulate and so passionate, and there's other ones as well, but they know who they are, they don't need me to say. But because Amy has really put herself out there, it's kind of like a pure inspiration, because the community needs that to. And from what I understand, and I don't know her personally, but she was partial to cannabis before her condition, and it just, she found that, okay, I'm going to medicate myself here, and I know that I've smoked this before, so it actually does do good for me. And with that, then just when everyone almost forgot what Vera Toomey did for her daughter Ava, literally walked from Cork to Dublin, that. People have the memory of a goldfish, and as a stoner myself, I've no problem with my long-term memory. Short-term memory, maybe, sometimes, but the long-term memory is very sharp, and people tend to forget, when you're not in the the limelight, if you know what I mean. You're quickly forgotten. So it needs an activist every so often to come through, and whether it be someone who needs cannabis for medical reasons or needs cannabis for, and as I said about John Sinclair, all cannabis is medicinal.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on where you look at it. He would see it as he's a cannabis medical cannabis patient, and he now is the first citizen of Detroit. Like, you know, he was given cannabis when it became legal in Detroit, in Michigan, there recently, a few years ago, and fought for it to be not a Class A drug in the same context as heroin and cocaine, but a standalone plant. So he went as far as the UN. The UN now recognize cannabis as a plant.
Mm-hmm.
That's massive, and that's because of people like John Sinclair, an old dude. And I'm really inspired by the old dudes, Martin, because I think that generation, they didn't know anything, because they didn't have, there was no, in the world we live in now, there's no excuse for ignorance, I believe, because everything can be found out, whether it be in a 5-minute research or a more extensive research. So all the resources are there. You know, there's no excuse for not knowing how things operate, and obviously a lot of it is can be deterred as bullshit. But if you can bring it into a space and have a conversation like what you do with Martin's World, but you know, because the market is so massive and people don't stand up and say, "Oh yeah, I'm unashamedly a cannabis smoker," for adult use, you know, say recreation. And I think, you know, it's all in the terminology. And I know a lot of old guys, again, that would, or the elder generation, would be more comfortable with adult use.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think, and it's not because I didn't drink until I was 20 or smoke till I was 19. I don't think, and from understanding and researching and studying a bit, that the front lobe, it doesn't mature until, you know, you're well into your 20s. So the idea of 14, 15-year-olds smoking cannabis, and especially so many different strains around, you don't really know what you're getting. So their psychosis is obviously going to be messed up. But to have that conversation with an adult like me, I'm 48 now, you know,
mm-hmm.
It just doesn't wash, you know, like I pay my taxes same as everyone else. So don't start stigmatizing me in a conversation like being a stoner, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a kid in Ballymena or Ballybunion, you know, that's had a bad. Of course they will. Yeah. If you give them alcohol at 15, they'll have a worse effect. But like, you know, we're adults, and this is going to happen. So you really have to start engaging with people on the level where they're at. If they can hold a conversation in relation to moving things forward, and we're literally talking about an economy. I found out this year, you know. It's been a tough year, Martin. You know, I lost my father. He passed on there in April. So, you know, anyone that, you know, that's affected by such grief,
yeah,
you know, you think differently. And I seen the HSE for what it was, and it's a backward system. It really is. Mm-hmm. And the people that are working within it are definitely overworked, underpaid, and undervalued.
Oh,
and I just felt like, you know, they're really missing something here, man. You just legalize cannabis, and the tax you get on that will hold up a failing and falling health service. It's that simple in my mind, like, you know. And if it's not, then someone should sit down and say, okay, no, you're wrong because A, B, and C. But I know I'm not wrong because I look at the rest of the world, and it goes back to being able to have the whole world at your fingertips to find out exactly. It's legal in Uruguay. It's legal in every state in America. Now, I understand where Ireland might be coming from, with following the American example, or the American, get it legal in all states as a medical cannabis. And then I think Gino is, I think he should be pushing things forward quicker. We're at decriminalizing now. We should be at legalizing. We should be cashing in on this.
Yeah, should have been decriminalized a long time ago, to be fair. You know, Ming's bill back then should have led to decriminalization, as decriminalization happened in Portugal in 2002. Ming's bill was 2013, was it not? I believe 2013 or...
2013, yeah. I was up at that.
Yeah, so there you go.
And about 4 lefties voted for it. And then Gino brings in the medical cannabis one there
in 2016.
2016, yeah.
And we only got that last year. We only got like some of that last year.
Yeah, but they're so selective about it. Like, you know, it's, all of a sudden, like it's debated, it's voted on. It went through the two houses of the Oireachtas. So why are the HPRA holding it up?
Mm-hmm.
The Health Product Regulatory Authority. It can only be for a pharmaceutical company. No, if I'm wrong, just let's have a great discussion about it. Well, now I understand that it's going to be. This is how democracy works. We elect these people, and then they make laws on our behalf. So now they want to do, and it probably kind of was a good thing in relation to the way they did it with the abortion issue referendum, that they did it put up to the Citizens' Assembly. But the Citizens' Assembly, like, what is it? Just going to be another kind of, you know, talking shop? Because like,
I think that
there's a lot of people that are in pain tonight, Martin.
Yeah,
because they can't go out because they don't want, you know, the power of thinking that you're a criminal.
Yeah,
it's a heavy thing, especially for someone
big time
who doesn't know anyone on the black market and feels like, you know, it must be very daunting. It's very daunting for me. It is like even
the reason
because you're still breaking the law and you're still going to be, you could be in jail. Your passport could be revoked, all of those things. But like,
well, I don't know, can they revoke? Oh, well, I suppose if you're in jail, you can't use your passport. But yeah, but I know that the recent
traveling. I mean, like,
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm restricted in travel. I couldn't go to I was supposed to go to New York. Well, I was supposed to go to Washington State first to the International Students for Sensible Drug Policy conference, as I was leading the world leading chapter that year, because we were the chapter in the entire world that did the most activity across the year. And I did that while I was in Cork in CIT, and we got an award for that. And I couldn't even travel over to get that award, and I was the chairperson of that committee. And I kind of helped. Like, I won't say I done everything. I had an amazing team around me and great support there and everything like that. The people who went over, it was great that they got to go over, but I should have been there alongside of them receiving that award. I was denied that, and denied an opportunity to go to the United Nations Special Assembly on Narcotics that was being held the following day after that, and we were all getting bussed from Washington to New York by the SSDP, robbed of all of that opportunity because I have a criminal conviction for cannabis possession, because I'm a stoner, and our society doesn't look fondly upon people who consume cannabis, you know, and it was wrong. It was fucking terribly wrong, because I was robbed of many opportunities, and other people were robbed of opportunities. They were robbed of an opportunity to get to meet this fucking Irish guy from Ireland coming over who's been affected by drug prohibition, and he would have been able to share his input and help, you know, guide the hand of policymakers at that level, at the level of the United Nations. Who knows what an impact I could have made, you know, not being overly big-headed, like, but you just don't know what that butterfly effect could be. And, you know, but yeah, well, you know, who knows anyway, but, you know, the fact stands, yeah, people getting criminalized all over the place, and they're making it worse now with the introduction of this new, like, drug swab wipe. Now, the Drogger 5000 was bad enough as it was, but it wasn't as prevalent, I don't believe, as the rolling out of the new, like, as they say, COVID-style testing for roadside drug tests, where they're swabbing your mouth, putting it into a little fluid, and getting a result back a lot quicker than the Drogger 5000. But the thing is, people are petrified. I know a number of people now who have put their keys up, and they're just like, you know, I'm not driving. And some of those people are patients who use cannabis for medical reasons, and they're not intoxicated, they're not impaired, and they wouldn't be unsafe to be driving. And others are people who probably just consume it the weekend, and they're just terrified they're going to get caught Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday going to work, so they're just going to get the bus now and going to walk. On one hand, it's good for the environment, but at the other hand, it's literally their policies are terrorizing people at the moment. Terrorizing them.
Sorry, man. Very pardon.
Oh no, go on. You're grand. Sorry.
Yeah, just on that, like, you know, I was curious about, like, you know, the validity of it, because I understand, and it didn't happen to me personally, but guys that would be given random drug tests at work, and they'd be given the heads up, just don't smoke a joint for at least a month. This is why, because it stays in your system for a month. Now, I don't know the intricacies of that, but if you go to a gig, which I like to do, and, you know, have a talk if it's going, and, you know, then 4 or 5 days later, then like, is it in your, like, the validity of it, like, has it been kind of pushed to the, because it seems to be like you have alcohol and you can test that, you have cocaine, you can test that, and all in the system. But because cannabis is one of those
it's fat soluble. Well, that's the problem with cannabis. It's fat soluble, so it sticks around for longer. So you wouldn't be under the effects of it. You wouldn't be impaired with it, but it's just there. It just sticks around longer in the system. Whereas, say, alcohol, cocaine, and other drugs, they're water soluble drugs, which means they'll flush out of your system in like sometimes 24 to 48 hours. I think there's certain metabolites that might stick around for longer. I know hair samples tend to carry drug use as well for a lot longer than that. But yeah, with cannabis, and I do think it's a bit over exaggerated, I suppose. This kind of, oh yeah, you smoke a joint, it's going to be in your system for like weeks on end and stuff. If you're a one-time user, like if you've just smoked cannabis tonight, you know, you're probably going to be fine the next day or so, you know, depending on how much you smoke that night, you know, I'd have to say. But if it's just like you had a joint that night, most likely you'll be good the day after. But it's the repetitive use. If you're a daily consumer, say if you're a daily user and you might have consume a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, or in the afternoon and the evening, you're just repetitively using. You're after getting a tolerance, but you're maintaining a therapeutic dosage. But you're not impaired. You know, and those people, those people would test positive for longer. But depending on the test, I don't think that those drug wipes would get you up to a week later, 2 weeks later. I think, you know, I know the Waterford Whispers had a great article there that a lad fucking got put off the road in his 30s who tested positive for a joint he smoked in transition year. It's like, you know,
I just see the image.
It's quality. Like, but I do think it gets over exaggerated a little bit. But like the fact of the matter is, it's fat soluble. It does stick around for a lot longer in your system. Yeah. But when they're testing it in your saliva, don't forget, saliva is water based, so it's not a great carrier of it either. And also, just a heads up, I'm not telling people to be cheating the test, but if you happen to have a bottle of water, even, or like piece of chocolate, or even anything at all, really, just to swish around inside in your mouth, it's quite easy to get negative tests on those. But at the same time, I'm talking about the Drugger 5000. With that new drug wipe test, those things are, from what I've looked at in the studies and the literature, they're actually like 1 in 5 is a false positive or something like that. I believe the numbers were 1 in 5 people that were part of the study done on it tested positive, but they were actually negative. They had nothing in their system, so they got false positives. 1 in 5, that's quite high. It's 20% of people, you know, potentially being tested at the side of the road, being held up, you know, because of a false positive, to go back to the station to get a blood test. Stressful, because they put you in handcuffs, I believe, when you test positive at the side of the road, and put you into the back of the patrol car, take you in the patrol car, they bring your car back to the station. You know, there's a whole ordeal. Imagine you're there at the side of the road with your family. You know, that's a terrifying thing to do. So, and that's the reality facing people currently in Ireland today, because of these fucking barbaric laws. But like that, I suppose, you know, it's not all bad. I do see change coming. I'm hopeful. You mentioned the Citizens Assembly and stuff, and I really don't. I hope it's not just going to be a talking shop and nothing comes of it. It'll be interesting to see the lifetime of our government, whether it actually lives out the entirety of the duration. I think they've another 2.5 years left before the next election is to come up. So if the Citizens Assembly happens, and if the government actually stay in power for the duration, I think we could see potentially a change off the back of the Citizens Assembly if it happens in an expedient time. Because I suppose what the Citizens Assembly will do for the government is it unties their hands. It frees them of the burden of, ye changed this and you fucked up society. You know, it's like... They can't be blamed for making a change, because they're just, well, we're listening to the citizens. Oh, this is democracy. We've listened to citizens of the Citizens Assembly. They did it for the abortion thing. They knew it was something to support. But why didn't they support it? They should have made a change anyway, really. I know there were referendum issues and there's probably a bigger discussion there to be had. But to be fair, banning same-sex relationships was messed up. Like, you know, if a man wants to marry a man, a woman wants to marry a woman, why does it bother anybody? Like, why did we prohibit that in the first place? Like, we didn't need a Citizens Assembly to change that, to be fair. Now, I know
in England they realised that, that's something there, and then they said, "Oh, we fixed that." They didn't need didn't need Joe Duffy going on for 3 months about it,
Yeah, but
and allowing all these crazy people saying, "Oh no, they shouldn't have kids." It's not about having kids; it's about two adults getting married.
But what really annoys me about it is why we didn't have it already, because we had a citizens we 2 or 3 citizens assembly, I believe, there over the last 2 years while they were talking about this one on drugs, because the Green Party they were supposed to be all for legalizing cannabis, and in order to kind of take that off their manifesto, well, they now said, oh yeah, well look, we got citizens assembly on drug use, or the drug decriminalization of the drug users on the program for government. That was their kind of making up for sending us down the river, as cannabis consumers, because a lot of people supported the Green Party in that last election off the back of thinking, no, these guys are going to be the ones who are going to support cannabis legalization, but they fucking sent us down the river.
You remember their manifesto, the Green Manifesto, was to have an Amsterdam one.
Yeah.
That was before the last election.
Oh yeah, and then the government talks came along, and they were like, oh no, that doesn't matter. But look, the Citizens Assembly, we'll do that, and here we are now, 2.5 years, halfway through the lifetime of the government, and it's supposed to happen now in maybe February, March, May, June, June 2024.
Well, like with a new government, and it's likely that Sinn Féin would be the alternative government. Like I don't know, they're a bit slow about getting with the program as well, aren't they? They haven't kind of committed. And I know from talking to the guy who left Sinn Féin, set up his own party.
N2 guy, is it? No, that's not him.
N2.
Was that him? Yeah.
No, is it N2?
No, I think he was a Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or something, wasn't he?
No, Shinner.
Was he Shinner as well, N2 guy? All right.
It was N2.
Oh, it was over the marriage thing. I think he fell out with him over, wasn't he?
He fell out over the abortion issue. Karen Nolan as well. They did take
pro-lifer, yeah.
And but it just goes to show you the buzz term. Medical cannabis. That's grand, but recreational. When I says adult use, but most mainstream would call it recreational. No. And he had that. I met in Kilkenny. He was doing some talk, and I says, "Where are you on cannabis?" And he goes, "Well, for medical use." And I think Sinn Féin have that thing as well. That people that want it for medical use, no problem. But people who want to enjoy it as a stimulant, and like adults, like someone would enjoy drink or betting. And it is a voice, but it's like anything. You have to control it, and if it gets out of hand, it gets out of hand. But you have to be. This is a liberal democratic society, and we're in the 100 years since the Civil War. People fought and died, gave their lives blood for our liberty. In relation to, and I have to go back in relation to what I was talking about, the elder generation. My father never smoked. He was in London. I met my mother. She was a West Cork woman, so I'm a half Cork man. Very proud of that. And they came back, and he worked on the ESB, the building of a power station, and worked as a shift worker all his life. And he liked his Jimmy and ginger ale. But I remember when I was up in Dublin, first of all, smoking, we're beginning to find cannabis. And he probably smelt it off me one day when he collected me from the bus station in Athlone. And he just started into this. I was looking at the National Geographic there the other night, and I was looking at these Indians smoking peace pipes, and they lived till 116 smoking that backy, just kind of knocking the crack out of it.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was his way of saying, listen, I know you smoke, I can smell it off you, and I don't have a problem with it as long as you don't abuse it. And I just thought, that was someone who wouldn't be in those circles, but could understand why other people, as long as you don't it doesn't abuse you, and everyone be entitled to take what they can, as long as it's not hurting anyone. And when you bring it on, and I thought of going to Australia. I had friends over there, in 1999, and I seen a documentary of Billy Connolly going around in a Harley Davidson, three-wheel Harley Davidson, all around Australia, and he ended up in Nimbin. I don't know if you're.
I heard of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Big hippie town.
Up in Queensland. Yeah, so it's about 12 miles inland from Byron Bay, which would be surfers' paradise. So obviously it's surfers and stoners hand in hand, like and and then when we went there, I said, well, I want to check this place out. And then when we went up the coast, because we were stationed in Sydney, but we went up and we went inland, and there was just a tourist mecca of cannabis, and all these stoners around and brilliant crack. But then you go around that area as well, and I found a place called Lismore. And
is it Lismore in Australia?
Yes, like Waterford, yeah. And I actually found out about it at the time, and then I looked into it later, that the expats came out and just said, yeah, okay, like this is where we are. And it was Dairyland. So the dairy industry literally dried up. And then they realized, well, what's those guys over there doing? Oh, they're smoking cannabis. This is all right. and that's how it came out.
Yeah.
And I was just so inspired by this. And I was going, like 1999. So by the time we get back, then the new millennium is going to bring cannabis to Ireland, because everyone that I knew at that time smoked, and it was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
But the people that are away now in Canada and Australia, it's not the be all and end all, but they know that they can go, to Circle K in Canada. Circle K, they're all over the place here, and you can get cannabis and hop into your car and go about your day. That's amazing in Canada. Yeah. And we've got a history and a heritage and a culture of people fighting for our liberties, and we're so paddy last the whole time. We have to wait for America or England or Britain or EU to. It's not legal there, so why would you think you'd have? We should be streets ahead of these people.
Yeah,
and that is a tourist. It's a big tourist trap, and I wanted to make this point when I was thinking about what I wanted to say. So hopefully I won't be too long about it. But we're talking about economies, and the IT economy is almost after going nosediving. Like 20% of it is nearly gone, and I don't know. And it seems to be like, hold on a second, lads, the Wild West is over. So I don't know where it's going to go with AI or anything else within that dystopian future that I really fear for in relation to social credit system and all that kind of stuff. Now it might be far-fetched conspiracy theories and all that, but it's still follow the money, Martin. That's what I say. And if you follow the money and you look at cannabis, it's a cash cow. And what happened in the Midlands when the power stations were closed down because of fossil fuels, and I understand we have to get our Paris Accord in relation to the carbon dioxide. But if you look at all around the Midlands now, where you can't burn peat, but you can still import coal, like 40 euro for a bag of coal. It was 20 euros there last year. Like that's just insane in relation to where we're going over a war that's going to be apparently proven that it's just nothing to do with the price of fuel.
Yeah.
But what does have to do with is, and I'm all about the flora and the fauna, and I'm all about saving the planet. But a general bigger discussion has to happen, and people need jobs. There was nothing in the Midlands until those power stations came. Lamas had a dream with the Germans and the Russians to mill peat, burn peat, and bring and create sustainable employment. And with that, then was able to build communities like housing estates from Kildare to West Offaly. 14% of the landmass is bog. So now what seems to be happening when I go up there, and I really want to get connected with where I came from, and it's about being able to walk in my father's footsteps, and no one really. My father was originally from that area, but he went to England and came back because it was word that there was a power station being built, and he subsequently worked on it. But within that area, wherever the power stations were, in Shannon Bridge and Forban, where I grew up, and Road, Neatonderry, and Kildare, all peat power stations, like they were all blow-ins. You know what I mean? Like they came because the work was there. So the work is gone, and the power stations are being decommissioned.
Yeah. And
the bog rail is being taken up. And if you remember, when we got rid of the Brits, the first thing we did was paint the post boxes green and took up the rail.
Yeah.
And that was everyone will tell you that was the terrible thing to do. They're doing the same thing with the bog rail, and they're I don't know why or where it's been taken, because they don't seem to have any creativity. I'm talking about Board of Mona, essentially, which is a semi-state body, which is funded by the taxpayer.
That's right.
Our money. But the profit seems to go for themselves. And amazingly, they have a contract. You know who they have a contract with, man?
Who's that?
Mother Nature. That's very convenient. So do I. Here, I'll show you my contract if you show me yours. So they're our caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, all that land is being flooded for to keep our emissions down. Let's look at it in the short term, but also keep an eye on what's going to happen when there is no jobs and when the IT thing plummets. And most of the guys that I know work in IT, not most of them, but a lot of guys work software developers and web developers, and within the IT, whether it be data harvesting or bringing just the work in that sector. It's a big employment. But those jobs seem to be going very quickly.
Yeah.
And wherever they're going to go next. But the whole thing is that we are an agricultural country. We're a tourist country. We're an artistic country. We're the only country that has as their emblem is the harp, as national an instrument. You know, we're looked at so well from the rest of the world. We're respected so well. We need to hold on to our identity. And in relation to the cannabis thing, it's the two rules of economics: supply and demand. The demand is massive, and the supply. And then within that, then you're talking about getting the strain that suits, and then we're talking about competing in the Amsterdam Cup. It's a tourist mecca. You talk about cultural vultures and all that. The stoners, the stoner tourists, man.
But
I worked in hostels, and they're the coolest people. All they want to know is where can you get some smoke, and that's it. They don't even smoke inside. Respect. They've got so much respect, and they're so cool.
Yeah.
You deal with a stag group,
Some of the nicest people I've met have been stoners, but I will definitely say I've met some absolute cunts of stoners too.
Oh, totally, man.
That's
absolutely.
But it's not one cause it's the other. But I definitely think there's a tendency for consumers of cannabis to definitely be more often than not cool people. They
spend, man. They spend money.
They do. But what is it though about the stigma against us, those consumers? Because I believe even in Luke Flanagan's bill, that there was an actual ban on cannabis tourism or something like that. That it was going to be only for people like from within Ireland. That it wasn't going to be. There was no cannabis tourism. I believe that was in there. Maybe it was in a rewording done by Gino later on as we were working with Gino when we were trying to rejig that bill, as he was going to be going for a legalisation bill initially when he started the conversation back in 2020. Now we're in 2022 and it's a decriminalization bill. But what is it about us that they were afraid of us, like that they thought it was okay to put in the suggestion that we must deter drug tourism? It's hang on a second, drug tourism, we're now it's all encapsulating that we're putting cannabis in there, because I do believe that was said by I don't know who said it, but it was said anyway that we needed to deter drug tourism. But it's hang on a second, we advertise fucking Guinness all over the world. It's come to Ireland and have a pint. This is you for real. You want to deter drug tourism, but at the same time we're going to promote alcohol all over the world. That Ireland's open for business. Come on over and have pints. It's insane.
It's hypocrisy, man.
Yeah, it is.
Hypocrisy at the highest level. The bottom line is these people are businessmen, and you talk about your situation that you can't do A, B, and C, but you've kind of putting yourself out there. With all that, and that needs to be applauded, man. So it's what you do is very difficult, because if it wasn't, everyone would be doing it. Trust me. You're taking a stand on behalf of an awful lot of people, including myself, and it's of sacrifice to you, and maybe a sacrifice to me now for being on your show. But people have to stand up and be counted. The more people that do, the better off we'll be, because it's inevitable that it is going to be legal in our lifetime. And very shortly, if people stand up and be counted. But it's the stigma goes back to, you have to normalize it. And when the normal was happening, Ming set up normal to bring his bill through in 2013, and he had Stuart Clark from Hot Press, and he had Garrett GP.
Garrett McGovern.
This is on the
Cahill O'Sullivan was there as well at the time.
Yeah. And
another GP.
A few more high-profile people. but there was a kind of a subcommittee then in relation to that I kind of, was interested in. And it was like normal. And then Norman, we came up with this character, Norman. Like normalize, and what's Norman? Like, well, Norman is just your obituary stoner, like, And, I was kind of like, oh no, this is serious. And then when I found, like, hold on a second, cannabis isn't serious. It's just something you do to relieve your stress, to listen to your music, to maybe read a bit, to kind of focus a little bit more on what you're actually doing at that time.
Yeah.
That's what cannabis does. And that's an amazing thing. If the more you drink, it's just going to get worse. I'm not saying the more you smoke is going to get any better either, but if you just have,
it depends what you're smoking.
Exactly, and this is it because of that on that point exactly that there's so much vary. You don't go into a pub and say, "Oh, what's this alcohol thing?" I'm like, "Oh, well, you got pints and you got spirits and okay, I might have a what do they come in? Pints, glasses, shorts. Okay, I might have a pint of whiskey." And your man will go, "Yeah, that's fair enough." It's literally like you're it's potluck, pun intended again. I suppose and what you get on the market.
On that point, though, in Ireland, that actually happened. Lads at a stag, and I believe it was a pint of vodka he served a guy, and the guy died later in hospital, and the barman got done for manslaughter because it was reckless what he done, selling him so much alcohol, knowing that he was going to drink it there and then. And that's what happens under regulation. You know what I mean? People are held accountable for selling people like dangerous freaking like amounts of drugs in that kind of a format. But at the moment under prohibition, we don't have that protection as consumers, as you say. You could walk up and ask for a pint of whiskey worth of weed, whatever the equivalent is, and you'll get it. You get those fucking Death Stars there that your man Joey Diaz to be on about, those 1,000 milligram fucking THC things that absolutely obliterate you. And then you get told, "Oh no, this is just a little tiddlywink. Don't worry about it." And
when you look at how it's been done now in relation to craft beer, for example, like I always thought, like this Budweiser and Heineken and Carlsberg is piss, like So remember the time we used to be able to get a beer down the road, and you knew exactly where it was coming from. And now you get your beer down the road, but it's craft beer and it's more expensive than anything that's imported. So they're capitalizing on that, and fair play. And then there's the Connemara whiskey, and just wouldn't you love if it was in a case for 10 years, that you could actually sell more of it to the big Chinese market, the American market. They love Irish whiskey. It's a brand.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt in my mind, like that cannabis can be that brand. And I think the best strain is in the making. I don't know who's making it, but I'd love to get some samples going.
Yeah.
The BC Bud, which apparently is one of the best in the world, the Canadian British Columbia
BC
Bud. I think deep in the heart of the Offaly peat land, and I know that the cannabis can't grow in the bog because of the acidity and that. But somewhere within the perimeters of it, there's this fantastic strain. It's called Awfully Good Vibe. So it's only a matter of time before it's capitalized on. And I just give it out there, lads. Enjoy it. And with that, then let's have like the ESB and Board of Mona. Let's have all these artists that can't afford to live in the big cities to come into inland where we can really go into the eco environment and start working with hemp and hemp-free and sustainable products. And if it's not your bag, then that's fine. But look within this area and look how much economy this will be for the exchequer. I visualize it from that time in Nimbin, Martin, in 1999, and looking at Billy Connolly, and he talking to all these old timers. And then he went on and subsequently did a train journey in America, and he ended up in Oregon. The same thing. All these old timers going, didn't understand cannabis. A lot of them would be from the Sinclair type, if you like, of counterculture, the hippies, but also people like that with arthritis, with chronic pain, and just can't believe the relief, and you see the excitement on Amy there when she's doing the interviews now, and you hear her, she's liberated, like there's no stigma there. She's got it, she's entitled to it, and the whole thing is, I don't know where the solicitors are in this country, man, because surely that's a precedent. And Amy be the first one, she has it, and But she'd be saying, why isn't everyone else getting
But there's
this?
others out there like Amy. There's another girl Amy's actually communicating with at the moment. Another lady who actually suffers with endometriosis, and she tried to grow a cannabis plant for herself. It was, I believe, it was only a CBD plant as well. It was a low THC variety of cannabis. She'd not really tried it before, and she didn't really want to be trying something that was too strong. So I think that's why she actually even said she would grow it, because she didn't have that choice out there in the market. I think it was maybe a 1-to-1 strain, something along those lines. But she got caught with the plant, and she's been dragged through the courts now. You know, it's horrendous what she's going through. She's terrified, and you know, like that. Amy's an endometriosis patient now. She's a license to use it, but now this other patient, among many others, I being one of them, not suffering from endometriosis but having epilepsy, we're still struggling, you know, to get access to be legitimized, I suppose, to be legalized as patients using cannabis. Like, I actually had my epilepsy nurse on the phone to me just the other day asking me, you know, how am I getting on? It was the first time they talked to me in a couple of months. I just informed them, I was like, look, I'm after stopping all the medication that you were giving me, and I've been using cannabis solely now for the last number of months, successfully managing my seizures. And I'm going to continue to do so, and I would really like your assistance to do it if you were able to sign off on the ministerial license for me. And it didn't seem like she was too interested in entertaining that thought at all. She was more inclined to warn me, you know, you stopped all your meds, you know, you can die. You know, you could just like the sudden unexpected death syndrome that comes with epilepsy. It's like, oh yeah, no, sound, thanks very much. So you're going to tell me I can die without my meds, but not help me get access to my meds. It's like, are you not listening to yourself, lady? And I even said it to her, but she was like, oh yeah, but there's just not enough evidence there with cannabis, you know. And just a whole back and forth that goes on. Why isn't there enough evidence? Because of the fucking prohibition we've had over the last couple of years, because it stifled research. The stigma that was there. If you were a researcher, you only researched the bad effects of it. You didn't research the good effects of it. Even if there was patients saying to you, hey, look, I'm using this and it's beneficial, as that was seen in many studies that started to find negative outcomes of cannabis, and they were finding actually it's helping the people that were studying, and they tried to bury those studies, but they're being dug up, and they're showing like, hey, these were started with bad outcome, with an aim to have bad outcomes. They had a good outcomes, but they didn't really talk about them much then afterwards. They just focused in on the bad sides of it. And we see the boys Bobby Smith and Ray Wally up on Twitter there again, the biggest prohibitionists in Ireland at the moment, pushing a lot of misinformation out there, trying to link certain studies to show that cannabis use is more associated with detrimental effects to the lungs, emphysema and stuff like that. I think it was talking about. And basically you read into the study, and it's like, no, actually the cannabis smokers were tobacco smokers. So people who smoke tobacco did worse than the people who smoked nothing. But the people who smoked cannabis, as they say, done worse than the people who smoked tobacco. But the thing is, the people who smoked cannabis were smoking cannabis unfiltered with tobacco, which we know has all those negative associations. So it's like, it's actually the information they were sharing was for better education, but they don't talk about that. Why? Because, as you mentioned earlier, there's a dehumanizing aspect to this. They need to keep us dehumanized. That you know, we're not people that need to be shown compassion. We need to be beaten with a stick, and we need to be shamed into abstinence and staying away from this kind of stuff. Whereas we're saying, no, actually, this is kind of a part of me. It complements who I am as a person, and I very much like it, and the improvement in the quality of life that it's given to me. And hey, and it helps my seizures stay away too. Great.
Yeah. And I like, you know, there's an awful lot of moral arbiters in this country, and a lot of them work in the public sector, and an awful lot of them would be devout Catholics, and they seem to think that they know best in relation, and all drugs are bad, and it's a gateway, it's a gateway drug. You know, all of that we've been growing up with, Martin, but they've all been debunked to the point where we're talking about Amy Brown, and I think she said it brilliantly. Like, you know, when said if I was to OD, everyone would be writing my obituary and saying, "Oh, she had a great life."
Yeah,
words to that effect. But now
everyone would be mourning her in her passing. Yeah. But whereas people to cry for her to live in peace, you know, to live a life free of suffering. I think there was something along those lines.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you heard someone in the crowd going, "Yeah, that was me," because I felt like, you know, she nailed it. Like, you know, and you know, the I don't
Very
use the
powerful.
F word that often, but when it has a purpose, you know.
Yeah.
And I always find that thing has been proven that people who curse are actually more honest and more passionate than about something than ones that use the mumbo jumbo and the jargon and all the sales bullshit. But she was so clear and so concise, and that was it. Like, don't dare write my RIP notice. Right. I'm fucking living here. Like, this
5
is
for me to live.
and whatever. Yeah, absolutely, man. And if people are to take anything, it's people's right to medicine, and whatever people in Ireland think, it's been proven beyond reasonable doubt that cannabis is not a gateway drug. It's actually a medicine, and it's a plant. And adult use, those things, and stoners are all right. I won't say stoners are harmless, because harmless is nearly a negative word either. They're not clued in. As I say, I'm a stoner, but I haven't been smoking for a while, and hopefully I might have one over the Christmas and be able to catch up with a few friends and talk about real issues. This country moving forward, man. I'm really serious about it, Martin, that I see this because of the one thing is the rule of economics, supply and demand. The demand is massive. Now all you got to do is regulate the market and let people get what works for them as a medicine, as a stimulant. It's the same thing, and it's there to be abused. But don't start manipulating the facts, because the facts are there on the table, and you raise them every week with your stories and with your interviewers, and that's what needs to be kept going. And I think that people should be aware of false information, but the most important thing is that people's rights.
Yeah.
And in the last 10 years, we've all been talking about people's rights. So why are stoners, because we're talking about that term today, be treated any less than someone from a different country or a different sexuality or an imposing situation that they need help with? Like, criminalization, we're past it. Legalize it now, and let's start making a serious cash cow out of this.
110%.
Because you know where it's going. I know you've talked about it on the program as well, but it's kind of like a fantastic documentary, 13th. I think it's on Netflix. And it's about the 13th Amendment in America. Slavery was abolished, but if you look at in relation to how the prison system is set up there, it's an industry to have essentially most of the people, 25% of the prisoners in the world are in America, and most of them are black, and most of them are there on small dime bag charges. There could be 6 months to 6 years for a small quantity of cannabis. But like now it's at the stage where cannabis is massive industry, massive in America. So you've got the Wall Street bankers and hedge funders and the Silicon Valley heads, and they're all looking at cannabis now as the next big thing. So the question asked in the documentary 13th, and I recommend your viewers look at. I say they've all looked at it anyway, because it's very, very, very strong message that the people, even though it's legal now, there's still no reparations. For the people. They're still stigmatized. They're still in jail. Yep. That's wrong. That's seriously wrong, and it's going to get to a point where all these guys are going to come in and take over a market that they know nothing about, and there's a culture to it, and that culture has to be kept alive. And because stoner is a term of endearment, and you highlight on the shows, and I'm grateful to kind of speak on behalf of it tonight, because I don't have the opportunity to talk on this level, but I'm always grateful to add my tuppence worth. And
man, I really appreciate it. But on adding your tuppence worth, how would you define a stoner? Like, what would you describe? Because I have a couple of questions to follow up on that after you kind of give it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose kind of highlighting from what I did, like, it's just someone that, for me, it's always been someone who's sound and smokes, obviously. Oh yeah, it's stoner, and with that, then a stoner's code. Yeah. So yeah, they'll get you reasonably good stuff. Like they're not going to, oh no, that's shit.
Yeah.
You know, you never associate a stoner with a dealer, for example, or even a grower, because a grower is obviously a bit more passionate in relation to the produce than a dealer, and the stoner in relation to the context, and I wouldn't see a stoner. We talked about the alcohol connotation, and some people use that word in that association. But for me, a stoner is someone who smokes cannabis regularly enough and is sound about it, and usually creative, and that's it, not more, not less. And certainly doesn't judge anyone. It's kind of he just wants to get through life and not have any drama or not have any bother or problems.
Yeah.
Chill out, definitely chill out as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with you there. And I suppose I would ask the question then, like, do you think a person has to consume cannabis to be defined as a stoner? Do you think there's people out there who just have just a natural stonerness about them?
Yeah.
Have you met people like that? Cause I know one or two anyway, and I was shocked when I found out they didn't consume cannabis. I was like, really? I would have assumed you were.
Did they ever?
It just gave me the vibe. And
no,
they didn't. No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, they're creative people. Like, not everyone that's creative, as I said, is, smokes or has done, or taken that in. There's not a lot of people that are serious about their art.
Yeah.
And completely teetotal, like, but they possibly are driven in an awful lot of other ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I could associate someone that hasn't taken cannabis as a stoner, because we don't have that much, so we might as well just hold on to what we can. Reclaim it, I think, is a
trans stoner.
Hashtag let no stoner be unturned. No stoner unturned. It's something that's that people need to be aware of.
Yeah.
And just I think the whole thing is, and most people that I find that do smoke just are more acceptable to people, and they don't label anyone. It's just kind of like, just live, man, because one thing life's taught me, especially this year, life is short.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be labeling or alienating. You want people to come together, and it's, unfortunately, you're right, that when I suppose the naive of being younger, and the older you get, you can't help it, you do become wiser. Unbeknownst to yourself, and that's just down to experience, nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
But you I wouldn't say naive, but you think that people that are smoking, and there's a beautiful ritual about passing the joint around, and even with the lockdown, you were kind of like, oh Jesus Christ, with the
company.
But I still did it. And I kind of knew who I was with, and then we're all kind of doing the same thing. But I think personally that the cannabis builds up your immune system, and that's what I work with. But that's my own personal choice, and I've made the decision myself in relation to how I medicate myself. But the whole idea of being able to not judge people and just be part of living life and just helping each other out and not overanalyzing anything, and especially when it comes to name calling. And I suppose in relation to just what Amy had to go through and what other people will be going through tonight that aren't in her position, it's like, I kind of thought a bit hard about it when you said that you wanted to have me on to talk about it. I said, right, I need to kind of think about what I'm actually going to say and what affects me. And it's coming up to Christmas now, and it's like, what's happening is, like, cannabis patients that need cannabis for medical reasons, specifically for chronic pain, let's just say, because that's what's happening at the moment. And that's a wide variety of people, and that can be so many different reasons. Chronic pain is just so great, such a great area. Like, it's like saying a handful of kids get to enjoy Christmas, get to have Santa's going to come to you, but Santa's going to come to others. it's if you, and I try not to make analogies because there's no punchline there, but there is. It's. I hasten to use the word sadist because that's probably too strong of a term, but there's someone fucking around there. It's just not. It's not right. It's so disrespectful that and because at the back of their mind is, they're only stoners. They're patients. You want to give them the best medical help you can get. And if Mary needs to go over and get an operation or some a keyhole surgery in Denmark or something, you're going to have a fundraiser. Who's going to be the ones that are going to be asked first? The artists, the musicians. Yeah. You can be rest assured that they're probably stoners. It's so difficult. It's so heart-wrenching that we are outside of it. And you know stories more than me in relation to how people have been dealt with in relation to their diagnosis for MS or chemo. It's terrible, and they're great inspiration. Yeah, I speak to Stevie Garland and Kenny Tynan. Those guys.
Stephen
personally.
Is an absolute legend.
What a great inspiration they are. And it's great to see that they're in control of their own destiny. And
that's the way we all Kenny released his song there. Was it 2 nights ago? 2 nights ago, I think it was. Yeah, with Amy's poem, "The World Is on Fire."
Oh, brilliant!
Have you heard it yet?
No. Let's get number one.
We'll give it a play there in a minute by the end of the show. But it's a great listen anyway. Fair play to Amy. She done a poem up on Instagram, read it out, and Kenny took the reading from Instagram, the video, and turned it into a bit of a dance tune. It's class. Not no better man, but two legends there, Amy, Kenny. The same as Stephen Garland then as well. Like he really he's like with the Irish Canna Clinic, some of the talks he's done there as well. Yeah, great campaigner.
And Alicia, medical refugees.
We could list them all day, but
Martin O'Brien, man, he's really after bringing it on.
So we're listing out nearly all of the people from the Patients for Safe Access there, to be fair.
And could you say these guys are stoners? They've done more, man.
Martin O'Brien's definitely a stoner.
Because it's so difficult to do it. Like anyone can go up and do it if it's all legal, but when you feel that it is going to be legal and it needs a push, and the people that are standing up, I don't think any one of them would be the guys that I'm talking about would have a problem being stigmatized as a stoner. And hopefully we've done a bit tonight in relation to we're not all that bad.
Yeah, hopefully you done more good than bad anyway. My absolute awful start there earlier.
Is this going out? Can we be heard?
You don't been live the whole time. Oh no, but it's been excellent. And you know what I remembered actually is that you've been on before. Myself, yourself, Graham. We done a remembrance night for Howard Marks. Was that last year, I believe?
It was last year, actually, yeah. So Richie was on, the great Richie.
Richie was on with us as well, that's right.
And so we met all them down through UCC, the sensible... SSP,
Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which initially was DARE, Drug Awareness and Reform Society, because they weren't allowed to be sensible because that was Diageo's term.
And it was a fantastic show you had there recently with Graham as well after Electric Picnic.
Yeah. Graham's due to come back on again in an not too distant future too.
Again, and that's how people can actually, stop the stigma, by normalizing it. It didn't work with Norman, but we've moved on and we're moving on the whole time. And once again, Martin, it's really important work you do. And I know that you had a bit of a break, and I didn't catch up as much because I was kind of out of the loop myself. But when you were gone, you were missed, and and hopefully it's not too much on you, but just want to thank you personally for
I appreciate that, Johnny, man. I appreciate that, and my apologies for my absence. But it wasn't an easy choice to make. To have to step back for a little bit, but it just had to be done. I think it was the right choice for myself to make, as I just wasn't well, I suppose, with everything I was dealing with outside. I think I said it well in a video that I wish I could go back to the days when cannabis prohibition was my biggest problem in life. Is there's been other things that have been really just trumping that there lately, that have really been needing my time and attention. But I still need to be looking after myself in other areas. So I'm trying to get the balance right again, getting back out there doing some interviews. And I said, no better person to break the ice with now tonight than yourself.
Yeah.
I was hoping to have Amy on as well actually yesterday, but yeah, I was having some car troubles there yesterday, so I didn't even get around to getting that organised.
Christmas, man, it's a stress. Well, anxiety and stress levels are at an all-time high, I suppose.
Yeah.
Seeing as we're still kind of coming out, finding ourselves on the back of 2 years of lockdown, and but there's one thing for sure, that when you're reaching out to people, and the conversation is being kept going, we're learning the whole time, but not to close down the conversation in relation to anything is not good for society in general. And the communities are based on. We've all been inspired by people that you felt like, Bill Hicks, the voice of reason isn't being heard, and then you realize that there is. It's just have. It's not going to be an RT, but.
Yeah, so speaking of RT, actually, just wanted to revisit an old story and go down that memory lane, because and you probably know what I'm going to bring up. Maybe is I don't know, were you present on the night in question? But Howard Marks, I believe he was a guest at RT Studios on one occasion. Was that right? And there was you can fill us in there if you want, because I'll butcher the story if I even tried to half.
Well, you could be talking about two stories there now. One of them I wasn't involved in. Like when I became his tour manager, and that's a funny story in itself, because these that sound like I'm just a shit kicker. I'm no big promoter, but I just happen to be able to.
Let's go there first. How did you become Howard Marks' tour promoter?
Yeah, well, okay. I live in Kilkenny, so Kilkenny is synonymous with the Cat Lass Festival.
Yeah.
But I've always been on the fringe and off the fence.
It's
a great name. I didn't come up with myself, but I says I'll have it. And so we the Laughingstock Comedy Club. And I was just kind of, looking at who could we get now that's, because, it's the same kind of comedians that do the circuit, And I found it a little bit boring, and I was always kind of given a platform to up-and-coming comedians in a few bars that wouldn't be associated with the main festival. But it's not like Edinburgh, people don't go off the beaten track. It's not that big of a festival, but so you're going to be very lucky to get people into a gig that's not on the main bill. But I thought, like, if I shoot high, I go, Lord Marks, he's an interesting character. And I remember he did come down and perform in Kilkenny in 2001. It was a month after 9/11, in fact.
Yeah.
And he was doing a lot of talking about where he got his produce in relation to Afghanistan. And, he started off in Oxford, coming from Kilfinnig in Wales, a mining village. And he ended up studying physics in Oxford. So, and that led him to becoming friends with ambassadors' sons and daughters, and getting contacts and all that. But a lot of what he was saying that night in a room full of smoke before the smoking ban, and I just happened to say something to him that night, and his head turned, and it just sparked a conversation. And that was it. There was nothing about it. And I always thought, like, he's a sound head. And I read his book, obviously. It's probably the most read book in Ireland per capita, Mr. Nice. And so when I'm looking at, this is 2011, I'm looking at who can I get as a comedian that has never played Kilkenny. And is Howard Marks a comedian? Well, kind of is. He's a raconteur, and all these stories are amazingly funny and they're true.
Yeah.
And anecdotal, and he has his spoken word shown. So I forgot. I'll Google him, and next thing I realize he's in Letterkenny on the Friday night of the weekend, the June bank holiday weekend, which was the festival, comedy festival. And so I got in contact with his agent, and he says, I'm interested in booking him, and there was a number there. I followed it up with a phone call, and he says, yeah. He says, he's in Letterkenny on the Friday night. And I was on, yeah, I'm in Kilkenny. He says, Letterkenny, Kilkenny. No, it's not that far, It's far side of the country, And so I was obviously doing a few shows down there, and I asked a friend of mine, I says, listen, I have to collect a comedian to come down to Kilkenny. in Donegal, and it's May Bank Holiday or June Bank Holiday weekend. So all musicians worth their salt are out anyway, or artists, whatever. And he says, "Oh no, I'm busy, man. I'm doing sound that night." And I says, "Okay, no bother." I says, "Who was it on here?" I says, "Howard Marks." Says, "I paid for the petrol myself." So I got him up and I got him down. He did a fantastic gig. Got a marquee out the back, and he had all these old deers, fawning all over him. Never smoked a joint in their life, and it was just like Woodstock all over. He had a great time. And then I was just dropping him to the airport the following day, and I says, "Howard, that's great." He says, "Your film is coming out." And he goes, "Yeah." And I says, "I think I could do a good tour on the back of that. You're well known anyway, as you can see from last night." And he was really happy to be in a comedy festival, even on the fringe.
Yeah.
But still, most of the crowd that were there, were saying this was the best show of the weekend. And so that one gig kind of really kind of elevated me to being a considered promoter in his eyes anyway. So they were talking about what they were going to do tour wise on the back of the film, and he says, "Put in your proposal, and I'll make sure to kind of look at it and see where we go." And then I got a call a few weeks later. He says, "Yeah, Howard was bigging you up, and this is yeah, we've got an Irish tour that we'd like you to look after." And I was like, "Brilliant, okay."
Savage.
And it says, "Will you can meet him up at the premiere up in Dublin on the Thursday, and he's going to be on the late the following night." And I was going, "Okay, brilliant, right, great." Myself and Howard Marks in the green room, and that was
Pun intended.
and he was with Rhys Ifans, and the two boys were baked off their heads anyway, and they do the interview. It's funny, and I'm there in the audience with Mrs. and she's just kind of like doesn't like the late fun, very boring, and it kind of was, and not a fan of it myself. But anyway, we went to the show. Or one thing I asked his agent, I said, "Make sure, Dan, that Howard says that he's on tour in Ireland. That'll be a big thing. People will be going checking out." And of course, he forgot to say it. And then at the break, I went up to Tuberty and I says, "Yeah, Ryan, how's it going? Howard is on tour in November," and he forgot to mention it. And I'd written out all the dates, and he looked at it and he goes, "No, there's too much information. I won't be able to read." I said, "Okay, will you just read the website?" And then he got it and just threw it in the drawer. And I was going, "Oh, like, what the fuck, man? Like, that's, it's no skin off your nose. Why
Yeah.
I just felt like, that wasn't, that was just bullshit. Like, but he then after that was like, everyone was asking him on the tour, "What's the best cannabis you smoked? Where is the best cannabis you smoked? Is Ryan Tuberty as big a prick as he appears to be?" Those were the three main questions on the tour. And with that then, man, that was 2010, right? And if you remember, that was the snow. Everything cancelled.
Yeah.
Now, we were all over the place, man. We're in Newry, we're in Belfast, we're in Clonakilty. We went from Belfast to Clonakilty. Didn't make it easy on ourselves. We just went where the gigs were. Well, like we get to the venue early and do a sound check, and we'd have plenty of time. And but it was amazing, like that we went around and the only gig we had to cancel was Limerick because he was over in Cardiff intermittently between the gigs, wherever there was a much of a 2 or 3 days off. And we had to reschedule that for February, and we got some more gigs in February on the back of it as well. But no tickets were given back, and everything was, clockwork, and it was simple, and big crowds. And like when you think about 2010, the energy that he was able to bring to the place, and John Sinclair as well, when I had him over in 2013, a trip you'll never forget. The two boys were doing a show together, and we had them in Cork Opera House, and I can say this now because there's a Cork connection. Like, they were, "Oh yeah, we want that gig," and he'd already played in the Pav before Howard, and it went down really well. What a fantastic thing!
I was at that one. Great event.
Anywhere where Michael Collins used to go to the cinema, the rebelliousness in that arena. So it was made for him, and the guys were there really sound as well, really looked after him. So I just thought, like, that because we have another big player at the Opera House, and the guys were actually all right about it. They said, yeah, you possibly would be better. But they took the gig and held on to it, and they didn't promote it. Made a fantastic design of a poster done by a friend of mine, and they said they were going to hang it out in main arena, and they just did everything not to promote it. And the thing about John Sinclair, you talk about the Cork Jazz Festival. John Sinclair is a jazz historian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he really wanted to do that gig, but I just thought, like, that was an element of the government-funded venue saying, we're going to take this gig, make sure that no one else gets it because we're going to be competitive, but we're also going to use your tax money to not promote it. Sorry, they're not going to use the money, obviously, but you know the point I'm making. Like, it's like it's so sinister, like, and if they were so, like, like, once again, these people that are just carefree and they don't want to wind people up, they just want to be left alone to do something that's completely innocent to them, and it's victimless, man. That's the most important thing. No one gets hurt out of this. So to take away a right of someone to enjoy life, however they see it, as long as they're not hurting anyone, and then to label them then as well, it's we need to grow up. And once again, it's great to be part of the conversation, man.
And I've one story to share with you on the Howard Marks. But when the PAV event, I don't know if I might have shared this with you already. On the way to that event that evening, we had a number of pre-rolled joints. They've been blazing up already at the buddy's place. As he was speaking inside UCC as well before the PAV event, I believe, in that evening. And Graham was coordinating the PAV, or the UCC event. I was just up at Ladscaff blazing up as the UCC event was actually full. So I couldn't even go to that one. I wasn't even a member of UCC SSDP at the time. I wasn't even a student there, just an outside supporter. Knew Graham from Legalised Cannabis Ireland. But yeah, Howard was supposed to come back for smokes with us and everything back at the other gaff, but it didn't happen afterwards because we were on the way to the gaff and we got stopped by the cops. And I got caught with I think I had 4 joints on me pre-rolled. And they had tobacco in them. These were the days when I actually smoked with tobacco, 4 joints, and I had to go to court and everything for that. I think I got like a €325 donation to charity on that occasion. As I was working, it was a bit of a higher donation I had to make. But yeah, it was good because one of those joints was actually supposed to be for Howard, as many others had brought him into, and the smoking room was fucking pounding that night. Like it was it was a sight to behold, to be fair, like, John, because it was 2010 if memory serves correct. It was quite a bit back, so to be,
and he loved Cork. He did,
yeah.
His grandfather, I think, was from Cork.
Yeah, no, he spoke highly of it. We had to have a good old conversation with him once.
That's very home there, yeah.
Yeah, but I just remember that being in awe, I suppose, of the openness of people's consumption there in that evening. People were emboldened by his presence, by his presentation, just to openly consume, and I was delighted. Like I was just wishing that this could be a norm, and sadly it just wasn't. It wasn't for another many years until we see something anywhere close to that kind of a display. But yeah, no, that was an amazing night. Well worth getting caught with the joints anyway.
Yeah, that's a pity, man, that you had to go through that though. Yeah, once again, the bad buzz, but he's all about the buzz, man, bringing people together, having the crack, and that's essentially why and for adult use, and there's many adults that are using, and just have to keep stopping the stigma, I suppose, for want of a better term, and keep the conversation going, and just hit with facts the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
It is going to be legal. So the more people that get on board and stand up and be counted when and if they can, because it's not, no one, like, what pisses me off is people that smoke and saying, "Oh no, I don't think it should be legal." That drives me crazy. I don't know. Do you know many people like that?
I've met 1 or 2 of those people, to be fair. It's like, oh no, I think it should be illegal. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, you consume this stuff. Oh yeah, but sure. like if it was legal, everyone would be doing it. It's like, no, this is like, stop. So there
Yeah.
is
No, but
people.
that's an Irish mentality, isn't it, though?
Yeah.
You know, oh no, if you legalise it, then like the whole thing. Just another example, like in relation to lockdown, Dublin. Okay, right. So we're going to have an open summer. Everything's going to be outdoors. So okay, and in any other city, like I've been in America, I've been in England, I've been in Europe, I've been in Australia, and I know and understand that how things work in the outside world because I've lived there. And but the idea in Ireland really hit home. We're going to have outdoors, so everything's to stop the spread of COVID in inner venues. We have everything outside, and then there's no toilets. And a guy from the Dublin City Council was on the radio, obviously Joe Duffy, I suppose. That's where everyone kind of gives me their news. And it's like, yeah, councillor in Dublin City Council. Yeah, but if we put in toilets, that might encourage people to actually, go out and use them. So you understand that is the mentality of Ireland. That, oh no, if you don't, sweep it all underneath the carpet.
Yeah.
Don't keep your head down and say nothing. Don't be bringing attention on yourself. It's a colonial hang-up that we have. I talked to a few African guys about that as well. And then it's kind of, oppression is 3 generations deep. If you Britain don't have it, Germany don't have it, France don't have it. They've when they talk about liberalism, they colonized the world. And so they don't have any hang-ups about, trying to do something that might be, who makes it illegal? They're but a few, as Bob Marley said. They're but a few, but how can they control our lives indefinitely without the idea of having a conversation and bringing it on and argue every argument with facts? Facts override everything, and we're living in a time now where facts can be opinions. No, that doesn't work like that.
No,
facts are facts. So if we keep pushing the facts, and once again, it's all in the person, how they react to it, and it's there to be abused like anything. But as far as I'm aware, and the people that I know, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's only a problem. The only problem is that it's illegal. Yeah. and you're being made feel like you're a criminal, and that adds to the paranoia.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that's it. Like, you consume something that opens your awareness in an environment where you could be locked up.
It opens your awareness, man.
Yeah.
It really does. It makes you aware of things. Yeah. Because the mind slows down, the brain slows down. That's not in a negative way. Just you get to see a little bit more clear, or think a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
And that's it. In a nutshell, exactly what you said, that you have to be allowed to make up your own mind, and whatever is in it, it's a wonder stimulant. Whatever is in it, it does connect you with something special that other things don't. Maybe, and that's just a personal opinion again.
Yeah. But you're not far off wrong. I don't think everybody needs that, but there is certain people, I suppose, who need that tool, I suppose, to find that inner connection. Because I do think some people would be in need of that. That's how I would see, I suppose, in one sense, is to be criminalizing a person for their cannabis uses. You're criminalizing them for their biology, because you're biologically predisposed to be enjoying cannabis, in that there's scientific studies that have actually shown that there's a genetic predisposition for people not to like cannabis, and that there's certain people that have got this gene trait that actually just makes them just, as I was talking about earlier, people just have a natural stoniness to them, that they're just naturally a higher person. I think it's to do with maybe the anandamide molecule. Again, it's been a while since I read that study, but it was an interesting study to read that people who described not enjoying their experience with cannabis had this trait, had this gene trait. And yeah, that was interesting. And those people who had that, when they done a survey on, say, friends and family, would be described as being having this natural kind of highness to them, like, you know, that they're just naturally creative person, outgoing person, positive person. All of these the descriptors you used for a stoner a while ago, if that, you know, it's interesting that you use some of those, and a lot of them were word for word as described within that study of people who didn't enjoy cannabis but would have been described as stoners even without cannabis use. So it's
I actually know what you're
thing.
saying now in that regard. Like, would they be environmentalists? Like, I'm talking about not these wishy-washy environmentalists, but, you know, ones that would have, like, you know, recyclable paper and Greenpeace back in the day, and worn hemp clobber, you know. So yeah, I can understand what you're saying now in relation to that, not being a cannabis user, but still kind of having that kind of stoner kind of understanding of the creativity around the actual plant itself.
Yeah.
So I suppose a stoner is a byproduct of hemp as well. Has to be a label.
Oh, definitely.
A good label that you can hang your hemp on, Mark.
Yes. Anything going on with yourself over the next while? Have you got any projects, anything upcoming? Are you just keeping your head down and waiting for the next big fish to swim by your way?
Yeah, just pay these astronomical bills, you know. Can't cut turf. No, I really feel strongly that the younger people, and, you know, I'm 48. I'm not young, but I do feel young, you know. And
young heart, Johnny, boy. Age is
yeah,
just a number.
Age is but a number, exactly. But, you know, young people are being shafted. Really, like, there's nothing there. You can't get on the property ladder. And, you know, this is our, and I hate the idea of another brain drain having to go, you know.
Yeah.
I think if there was a focus, and I mean it sincerely in relation that this is a massive industry, it's a massive cash cow. It can create jobs, and if you can't give a job to a citizen of this country, and there's people coming into the country, and I say bring them in as long as we can look after.
Yeah.
We can only look after what we can look after. Let's not go crazy about it. But everyone is entitled to a job and a start. And that's what our parents got. And they were lucky to get it. And my God, didn't they make use of it, you know, because what they gave birth to as a people in the 50s and 60s and 70s and up to the 80s is an amazing people.
Yeah.
We're so educated, we're so liberal, but we're being held back by bureaucracy and corporate greed. You know, and that means that people, let there be one message to the Christmas. Come home with the idea of staying home.
Yeah.
And because this country needs its people and needs people from all over the world to embrace it and understand what it is to be Irish.
Yeah.
By the way, because we've got a proud history and culture.
Big time,
and
yeah.
I you know, other than that, I'd be gone, Martin. I don't have a family and so to speak of.
Yeah.
And you know, so I don't have the same commitment that most people, most of my friends and peers will have. And I've got a mortgage, obviously, you know, so there is that. But, you know, it doesn't define, you know, people will get up and leave this country because it's going progressively downhill. But I do believe in the people in the country. And I'm not going Ireland for the Irish. I mean Ireland for whoever embraces what this stone is. It's an island. It's a small, you know, we're insignificant in the whole scheme of things.
We're insignificant in one sense, but we're very significant in another sense. Like,
absolutely,
we have huge potential. We export some amount of food out of this country. You know, we do an awful lot for the rest of the world in this little country. But as you said, like, there is a bit of a brain drain going on here. We are being sold short.
That's systematic, though, Mark.
We're
that
being
happens every
run
generation.
into the ground. Yeah, well, there's people getting filling their pockets. There's getting people benefiting from this, while the country, you know, which, as you said, you know, is culturally rich. Once was culturally rich, but unfortunately, you know, so many people have emigrated over the last while. You know, sadly, I'm of a family where I'm the last of my siblings now left in this country. My brother, my two sisters have all immigrated. You know, that's 75% of a family gone overseas, and like that. If I wasn't, I suppose, tied down here with my own family, and if it was easy to shift them over somewhere else, you know, shout out to any cannabis companies looking for an employee overseas, willing to move an entire family. But you know, like, but it's a big ask, you know. But that's what would need to be done. You have to move an entire family. I can't do that, and That's probably the only reason I would be here, because to be honest, and it's something I hear all the fucking time. When I hear of another person leaving, and it's been said by everybody who hears of people leaving, Asher, there's nothing here for them anyway. Country's going to the dogs. And people are just okay with that. Like, when I hear people saying this, and I'm like, what? Like, you say that, but I was like, well, what's the follow-up? Are you just okay with that? Are you doing anything actively about this? And actively, you know, active is the thing. Like, because we've keyboard fucking warriors out there, but people talk shit in the street, but do nothing about it. You know, people give out about the government, but it's like, guys, you're the people. You're the ones with the power. The government answer to you.
Absolutely.
You have the power, right? People have fucking forgotten about that. Like,
your health's your wealth. 23 billion they're talking about putting in ring fence for the budget. 23 billion in the HSE. So you're talking about mental health, and then you're talking about mindfulness, music and art. That's all hand in glove, you know.
Yeah.
And then with that, then is whether it be for chronic pain or for adult use. And I know the HSE ain't going to look at cannabis as adult use, but at least for medical cannabis, let's not divide a small but growing community. And because it is disjointed at the best of times, and it's very transient, so the last thing that needs to happen within the community is a split to say that I don't like the idea of other people smoking cannabis to get high when I need it for mine. It's a bigger thing than that. It's economical. It's spiritual. It's mental health. It's physical well-being. It's all of those things, and it's been around longer than we have been, and it'll be around longer than we will be. So the best thing to do is embrace it and use it for the greater good. And I think we've talked enough about what we'd like to do with it. And it's just whether the politicians are the ones in control, so they need to take lead, and they are reactionary. Someone said to me, politicians are reactionary. They won't do anything unless you react, unless you ask them, and that's what Amy Brown did. Fair play to her. She's an inspiration to us all, the same way as Vera and the lads as well. And I'm very proud of such great people, like, against their own physical pains, yourself included, Martin. You know, you're standing up and being counted for what you need, but also for hundreds, thousands of others who can't or won't stand up. And it's getting momentum, man. It's great to see, but hopefully the mainstream will come on and have real conversations about it.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. It seems to be happening. The conversation is definitely shifting. And for the most part, I definitely met a bit of an ignorant host there recently. You know, Paul Byrne, but again, I suppose he's a bit of a biased position or perspective on it, in that he's like a Southern crime correspondent, you know, and he's always reporting on the crime aspect of it, and drugs are very much tied up within that narrative by the mainstream media, because, you know, drugs and crime, you know, it's like it goes hand in hand. But unfortunately, you know, he only seen it from that narrative, that point of view, and he was very much stigmatic on it. But, you know, I would say that, like, while it was a shitty experience to meet that ignorance, like that negative ignorance, it was a good opportunity to shine a light on it, because his narrow-minded questions, I do believe Amy and myself handled quite well, and answered sufficiently to the people out there sitting on the fence, or even on the other side of the fence, who might have been once supporters of prohibition, now kind of saying, hey, hang on a second, this guy's making a point, and that other guy's been a bit of an arrogant asshole asking that kind of a question in that way. So I did like the opportunity to get to meet that person, but I didn't enjoy it.
Absolutely. No, but from the media's perspective, they'll say balanced reporting, you know?
Yeah.
But then if you look at it in that context, and we talked about the UN recognizing John Sinclair's case to legalize or to make sure that cannabis was recognized as a plant by the United Nations.
Yeah.
The United Nations, like, was set up after the Second World War, so there wouldn't be a Third World War, so that you'd have all these talk about peace, broker peace at every. So where is the talk about peace in relation to the ongoing war in Ukraine? It just seems to be bombard. There's a proxy war going on there. It's all becoming very apparently clear. I know that's a side issue, but it's not really, because it comes back to in relation to defining a stoner again. Stoner essentially is a peaceful person.
Yep.
And they're the ones that you'll meet on the peace protests. And it's the 20th anniversary of the the war on terror that America waged in Iraq, and it was the biggest protest ever in Ireland.
Right, yeah.
2003. So it's going to be the 20th anniversary. And I guarantee you the people that will be talking about trying to get something going. And we missed our opportunity. We were on the UN Security Council seat for 2 years and we did nothing. Have a UN peace conference. That's, that could have been something that Ireland did, because we are a neutral country and we've never invaded anyone. And so we actually we've brokered peace in our own island.
Yeah.
And be an example for other countries so we lead our way. And with that, then it's, the people that would smoke cannabis would be more drawn towards peaceful dialogue, as opposed to people who don't. Might use other stimulants, for example. If you've an alcohol dependency or a gambling dependency, you're kind of just locked in there. If you've a cannabis dependency, you're going to think deeply about things. Mightn't help you, but that's it just goes with the territory. And essentially, if I was to kind of encapsulate what a stoner is, it's a peaceful person. And I mean, I'm very much I can't understand how we're talking about an ongoing war when eventually they're going to have to talk about peace. So why not talk about peace now?
Sure, Ukraine are going to win, don't you know? They're going to win, isn't it? Isn't that the narrative? Ukraine are going to win. It's like, there was an opportunity for talks there going back, was it in March or something along those lines? But it seemed very much that the West was, no, we don't talk with terrorists, like Russia are terrorists, like your man Putin's terrorist, and we don't talk with him. It's like, hang on a second. And it's like, well, we're supposed to be fucking going for peace there. It's like, we've almost taken a side. But I know this is completely separate from that topic of conversation. But no, I'm glad you kind of brought it up, because I'm not afraid to engage in it.
How you channel your thoughts and how you can stop from, because me and you ain't going to change America's foreign policy, or the EU foreign policy, or the imminent EU army. But these are things that we know because we read about outside of what the mainstream narrative want to give us. And when you're looking at the World Cup and in the middle of all that, Join the Army comes on as an ad, and you're taking the knee in front of Senegal. Like, come on, what?
Yeah.
It's like there's something there that's askew, and it's the same thing. Don't tell me that cannabis is a gateway drug when it's actually a medicine. Okay, that's the starting ground. So for someone who said, "Oh, it's a gateway drug," no, sorry, we had that conversation 10 years ago. It's been debunked.
Long time ago, yeah.
You shouldn't even. You're not even invited. You're not clued in enough to have an opinion on it. It kind of has to be in a softy stoner kind of giggly kind of way. But
no, you're dead right though. That a lot of things have been debunked. Like the cannabis causes schizophrenia. It's like there's a link there, but the reason why there's a link, people with schizophrenia, people predisposed to mental health illnesses, that they're more likely to seek out cannabis, and therefore there's going to be a correlation, but not a causation. And these things have been shown time and time again, but unfortunately we still do get met with these questions. Isn't cannabis a gateway drug? It's like Amy got asked that the other day, like I got asked that, as patients using cannabis, you're going to go in and use ecstasy and cocaine now. It's like, you for real? Like,
after being prescribed it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
As a medicine?
Yeah, after being prescribed it as a medicine, yeah. You went Paul Byrne, that was the question, yeah. I'm not sure, did he ask Amy that one? He definitely asked me.
How many pharmacists would have had to answer that question?
Yeah, it's bad. Like, it's...
That is it. That's more the stigma we're talking about, of course.
Yeah. But this is what we have to put up with, because we're like just druggies. We're stoners.
And people take
and
stock.
Proud.
Proud, totally. Stoners of the world.
Yes. Boom. I love it, Johnny. It's been a pleasure, man. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but freaking if there's anything else you want to delve into there, man, I can chat away for another bit with you if you want, or we can start saying our goodbyes and wrap it up.
Yeah, it's tough times ahead, brother. So anyone who can help anyone out with the chronic pain and make them feel like they're not criminals, would be a good thing to do this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I say, stress and anxiety is through the roof in an awful lot of cases. And that's just, people need a cushion. And unfortunately, alcohol just seems to be something that doesn't give you the same peace of mind, I suppose.
Yeah.
As something, and it kind of, what works for people. And I think maybe, petitions are really good, and surveys and polls, but I think, that because we own RT essentially, our taxes and license fee pays for that, they should be seriously into looking at it. And what the young people brought to the Dáil for the climate change, and when you see that they were serious about hemp, they've done the research, and the only reason that hemp products aren't selling is because they're sustainable. There's no money in it. You pay top euro for something of hemp,
but they're cost prohibitive as well because of cannabis prohibition. The hemp fiber itself is a rather expensive commodity. But if cannabis was actually legalized and regulated worldwide, it would be just a waste product of the global cannabis industry being turned into these sustainable products, and then to be sold for a lot cheaper, and then you would be seeing a lot more of an uptake and an adoption of these sustainable products, such as clothes for your back, roof over your head, bricks to hold up that roof. That there's so much products that come off of the byproducts of a cannabis industry. Because that's what it will be. It'll be a cannabis industry. I know because people talk about the hemp industry, but at the end of it, it's a cannabis industry, and a byproduct of the cannabis plant is hemp. And a hemp industry would be a industry, I suppose, off of the cannabis industry. It would be a sub-industry. That's the word, a sub-industry within the cannabis industry. It's not its own standalone industry. To be honest, it can't really stand alone without the entirety of the cannabis industry, because to be very honest, some of these products made out of hemp are quite cost prohibitive, unfortunately, because the hemp, just the cost of processing it and all that, it's quite high because there's just not enough people out there doing it. It's a bit of a niche, very much a niche area, actually, to be honest. If we look at it,
we put a serious dent into capitalism, and that's why it was outlawed in the first place. The linen mills and all that, and with the likes of pennies, and call them out. Young people get it, in relation to recycling the whole time, and they looked at, okay, the world is in crisis. The global warming is a serious thing. So, and they were the only ones that kind of took it seriously, and they went into the Dáil, and they were just patted on the heads, and well done.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So condescending.
Yeah, it was just a symbolic thing.
And now they're all 19 and 20, and they've got their degrees, and they've got their masters, and they've got their PhDs.
And they got their plane tickets to Australia.
They're not respected in their own fucking country, man.
Yeah. But if that's the experience they're going to have, why they're going to stay here.
There was one guy from Longford, that guy, Irish black guy, and he just was so refreshing in relation to how he was talking. And then another Asian Irish girl, and I'm going, this is the future, this is beautiful, this is Ireland. They all want to be bringing the thing forward for Ireland, but it's the same bureaucrats that are pin pushers within the system, and it's when you look at politicians in this country, they're almost disgraced business people. They're full of shit. I fail at my business, and all I got to do is lie to 3,000 people every 4 years. Oh yeah, I'm doing that. Oh sure, what can you do? The party whip, hands are tied. It's the same thing. And I have no faith that Sinn Féin are going to be any different. So I think we're actually beyond politics, and this is what I say when they're reactionary.
Mm-hmm.
If people push and they're organised, peaceful the whole way, always peaceful. I think it's actually. You asked me if they want to talk about something else, so you've opened up the floodgates there, man. But I do think that it's very close to. The tension is deep, palatable in the country in relation to the high increase of fuel. That doesn't seem like it's going to change. It's going to get progressively worse. And we don't know what's going on because we're not allowed to have a conversation. We're not allowed to have an opinion in relation to the mainstream media, where unfortunately most people will get their news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Oh yeah, well, sure. what's that? I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Because you never heard of it, you're going to
dismiss it.
write it off. But Joe Duffy on 450 grand a year, literally winding people up. That's, that's where it comes down to the conversation in the media, and you are a shining light in just one little corner of the media, and to keep doing it and be consistent is amazing. If I could pay you my TV license, I would.
Legend.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, if I paid mine, I'd pay it to me too.
I wish you that one, brother.
Johnny, man, it's been fucking an absolute pleasure, man. We definitely look forward to doing this again, and if you're down in Cork, maybe we can do it in person. We look forward to it.
Always good to get down to the real capital.
Yeah, and shout out to anybody else out there around the rest of Ireland. If there's somebody near Offaly, and if they know Johnny, or just give him a shout there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know what I'm on about? Just asking for a friend.
Howard Marsh's rider, the local produce.
The local produce, yeah. Any local producers?
Well, these are lovely strawberries that we got here.
Any tomato growers out there?
You're booking here.
Yeah, he's looking for green, juicy tomatoes.
Yeah, man.
All right, so Johnny, have a lovely evening, and thanks again, man, for your time here. Is there anywhere you want to send people outside of Offaly Good Vibes? I've included a link in the description for people. Awfully Good Vibes on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, I just I share stuff at the moment. I'm just kind of in transition, I suppose. Awfully Good Vibes is this concept. We started in 2008, and it was there to the 30th anniversary of Bob Marley, One Love, and it was really good because at that time, places like Tullamore and Athlone in the Midlands, you had people from Poland, from Nigeria, living and working in these places, and then once again, 2008, this is the new Ireland, and that was a massive success. And we had a barbecue for Oxfam, and actually, there's one thing I'd like to say, and that was an amazing gig, and it really started off the Awfully Good Vibes, and we did sporadic gigs every so often, but I never wanted to kind of capitalize on it because it's a place. Offaly is more than a state; it's a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I get it, and good vibes. And I've talked to the tourist offices now, and but whatever way Board Falls should look at promoting and advertising Ireland, is still, Killarney has this paddy whackery thing going on, and Board Falls just want to kind of put in, and it's brilliant, greenways and all that, but they're missing something big in relation to cannabis, cash cow as a tourist model, and also the culture and the art of Ireland is not being exposed enough, and it's just so many different diversions of genres and styles with the new multicultural Ireland. And that needs to be tapped into, and I'm not saying I was ahead of it. I appreciate it as it was, and I thought we were going places, but they've kind of different. They've repackaged it almost again, and they're not. There's a connection between being Irish and also being Nigerian, for example, being Irish and being Chinese. You can mix them both very well, and if that's nurtured and promoted, there'll be less skepticism and underseated racism, and it breaks my heart to see all that, bubbling and because conversations aren't allowed to be had, or real events, real integration, and coming together like that, rather than just putting on events and having the same usual suspects like Westlife. How many times do you have to come back, lads? They're doing a gig now for New Year's Eve, Board Falls. We've got one narrator in the whole country, Brendan Gleeson. It's like 5 people do everything in the country. And I've always wanted to put shine a light on this lad. This is interesting. This guy is Polish.
Yeah.
And he can drum like fucking Animal Out of the Muppets, and he's only 10. And I was going this is amazing, and it's an amazing country. And I just think that we need to kind of cast the light everywhere, and not just in the major cities. And you have to go, because it's a small island, small population, and it's getting bigger. We just need to be able to negotiate how and where we can, as Robert Emmett wanted to say, take our place with the nations of the world. and we missed the one with the UN Security Council. But 138 nations voted for our right to be there. Now, Simon Coveney and Bono think that they did it themselves, but once again, people are sick of the shit, and all they need is their voice of reason to be heard. And that's what I love, being asked. I'd never not come on if I'm asked to give an opinion on something, because Irish people are very proud to be Irish.
Mm-hmm.
The new Irish are wanting to be part of the bigger picture. And we're a new country, Martin, so we're still trying to find our feet. We're still literally off the shackles of the Catholic Church. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, time will tell. But let everyone's belief and faith be their own personal thing, same way as what they do and take into their body be a personal thing. And how we can communicate together is what makes us great as a people of all mixtures and races. And that's what I like to think going into Christmas. Just embrace what it means to be living, number one, and then secondly, what it means to be Irish and be part of shaping our future, and not leave it up to the gone beans, because we left it up for them too long. So let's take an active part in our country, in our world, and leave no trace. And I add to that, do no harm.
Yeah, definitely. The only trace you leave is the footprints over the prohibitionists.
They don't exist anymore.
I don't mean that in a violent way, John.
I know.
Right, so Johnny, that's an excellent way to close out, man. Thanks very much again, and I look forward to catching up with you. Hopefully see you this side of Christmas, man. If not, have a lovely one. And everybody else out there in the audience, of which we've had quite a big audience there. I think we've got over 40 people there happening, maybe a bit more throughout the rest of the evening. Nice one, everybody, for your comments coming in there throughout it. Didn't get to interact with everybody as much as I wanted to tonight, but I was seeing some of the comments coming in. A few of the guys filling us in there earlier. John Finnegan getting in Amy's actual quote there earlier. It was, "If I was to die, there would be an outpouring for me to rest in peace. But where is the outpouring for me to live in peace?" That was the actual quote that we kind of butchered on Amy. So I just thought I'd correct that.
How strong is that?
Yeah, no, it's powerful, man. It's really powerful. And now this lady has a license and legitimised her fight and her struggle. And now she's going to continue to shine a light on all the other patients out there like her. So it's epic, man. Stephen Kavanagh's out there in the audience as well. What's happening, Steve? Barry Fields. Too many of you to name, guys, but you all know you are. Much love to you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Johnny, and everybody else, stay blessed, guys, and have a lovely weekend or week. Peace.
Peace, man. Peace, folks.
So there we go, Johnny. We're all done. All done, man. Mike's cold. I done it right that time.
We're definitely off now. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike's alright.
Okay. Oh, man.